Go ahead.
Okay. So the point of today is really just to get the seniors' point of view and the student point of view of applications and kind of give you like an insight that maybe adults couldn't give you since we just went through the process and some of us are still deciding where we're going. So I'm going to have everybody in the panel just go around and say your name and where you're going to school and your intended major, and then if it's out of the state or if it's just a weird place, where that place is. We can just start in our order.
I'm Maylon. I applied to like all Cal States and UCs, and all in state. My intended major at all of them was biology or biochem, and I put my alternative major as environmental sciences.
My name's Sam, and I'm going to Ohio State, which is in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm planning on majoring journalism with hopes of being a sports writer.
My name is Juliana, and I'm going to SMC, and I plan on majoring in psychology.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I'm going to Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa, and I am going in as an animal science major.
Hi, I'm Isaac. I'm going to USC in LA, and I'm going to be a computer science major.
Hi, I'm Annie. I'm going to the University of Washington in Seattle, and I'm going to be an English major.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm going to UC Berkeley, and I'm going to study economics.
Hold on, sorry, I was muted. Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm also going to SMC, and I plan on majoring in global studies and like international relations, that kind of thing.
Hi guys, sorry, I had no idea when the order was. I'm Zoe. I am still deciding where I'm going to school. I'm waiting on a few things, but I am studying, or I'm planning to major in environmental studies, so kind of more of the like social aspect of environmental science. And yeah, I don't know. I can't really answer the other questions because I don't know where I'm going yet.
Hi, I'm Yogi. I'm intending on majoring in history. I'm still trying to figure out where exactly. I'm leaning towards the University of York, but I also think because of current events, I'm going to likely defer for 1 year and apply to the AmeriCorps. We'll see though. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Cooper Komatsu. I am not sure I'm going to college yet, but I'm deciding between University of Chicago, Rice University in Houston, and UC Berkeley, which is behind me. I'm considering majoring in math, although I am not sure yet.
Cool. My name is Savannah. I'm going to Hanover College, which is in Hanover, Indiana, and I'm going to study secondary education and environmental science. So the second question that we got are, what were you guys looking for in schools, and how did you guys know where to apply?
I applied to all in-state schools. I am too scared to go out of state, so that was like my biggest thing, all in-state. And I did like a variety of like safety, target, and reach schools.
Yeah, for me, I was kind of open to applying both in-state and out-of-state. And yeah, things I was looking for, mainly like a decently big school, kind of wanted like the social life aspect of that. Also, the school I'm going to, OSU, has a pretty good program for my major. I think that's something that a lot of people should consider when applying. And some good resources you can kind of use to whittle down your list is niche.com and collegeconfidential.com.
For me, even though I'm going to SNC right now, I did apply to some schools, a few Cal States, and then a few private schools. But then, like afterward, obviously, I realized that I kind of like the schools that I applied to, that wasn't what I was looking for. So I was kind of looking for like a a school in California and like a little bit of a bigger school, and like the schools that I applied to weren't where I saw myself, so I chose SMC.
So I didn't want to be in state, so I only applied to one California school. The rest were all out of state. And I have a bit more of an obscure major that's not at a lot of colleges, so that did a lot of narrowing down for me, so I didn't have to. And then I kind of just eliminated states I didn't want to go to, and then I kind of went with what was left.
So I knew that I didn't want to go to a particularly small school. I didn't need to go to a big school, but I just couldn't be that small. As a computer science major, I wanted a school that had lots of ties to the tech industry and that had research opportunities in engineering. And in the end, USC for me ended up checking up all those boxes, and it ended up working out financially. And that's sort of how I came to that distinction at school.
So I also knew I wanted to go to a big school because I want to go into a very competitive industry. I want to go into publishing. And I knew if I went into a big school, I'd have more opportunities for connections and opportunities in general. And I also wanted to go to a school that had a great program for my major. So I applied to a lot of in-state and out-of-state schools, but I ended up choosing out-of-state because I wanted to go somewhere new for 4 years.
I also applied to a combination of safeties, target, and reach schools. And I just want to elaborate a little more about what that means. So for safety schools, for figuring out what these schools are, you define safeties as places that you are numerically like probably going to get into. When you look at their average SAT score and range and GPA and stuff, you should see that you are clearly above that range. And so those are like safeties. And then when you talk about target schools, those are places that you are within their range. And then reach schools are places that maybe you're within their range numerically, but they have a less than 25% acceptance rate. Or maybe you're not within their range, you're at the bottom end of their range for SAT scores and GPA and stuff like that. And so those are places that are reaches. So yeah, I applied to places basically that were safeties and a target and reach schools. And I also applied to them based off of the amount of, based off the size of the school. I also wanted to go to a big school, but also the resources that they were seeming to be able to provide, the prestige, as well as the geographical location. I also applied to some schools in London as well because I really want to get out and I want to live internationally. And even though I'm not going to a school in London for financial reasons, there are still a lot of opportunities for study abroad at Berkeley. So that was another way that I made my decision.
Nice. So I'm going to SMC, like I said, but I'm transferring most likely to UCLA from there. I knew probably in November that I wanted to go to SMC and actually transfer to Davis because I like the vibe that they have over there. It's far enough away from my family, but also I have a lot of like older family members up there too. I knew I wanted to stay in California, but I was like looking for most people. I wanted a larger school, something medium sized, more like, but I don't know. You gotta go to the campuses and just see if you fit in there. Because if you feel like you fit in there, then you're gonna do well.
Okay, I think it's my turn, so I'm just gonna go. So for me, I think kind of what Caitlin was saying, I was more looking for a vibe on a campus. And so for me, studying environmental studies, I wanted to go to a school that had like that was very much into sustainability, into environmentalism, kind of just stuff that like was through and through in their campuses. So I applied to a lot of schools in Oregon. I also applied to a few schools in state here, but I was looking for like a nature forest oriented kind of school.
Okay, so for me, I applied to a bunch of schools. I mostly looked for schools that were sort of renowned in the fields that I was interested in, like history. I'm also interested in education, so I was looking for schools that have an education program. But in addition to that, I was also sort of looking at schools that I found their philosophy interesting, not their philosophy classes, but their philosophy on teaching and how they taught you. I would say I was looking between a small and a medium school. Yeah.
Okay, so I knew I wanted to be decently far from home. I knew I wanted to be in an urban area because of all the resources in terms of jobs and like cultural stuff that they provide. And I think more importantly than it, even any of those two is just I wanted to be in a place where there was like intellectual curiosity everywhere and where I could just openly be very nerdy and where everybody else would be just passionate about their interests. And that's what led me to these choices, I guess. And now that I have these, I'm looking at financial options, and college is very expensive, but I'm trying to look the one that's least expensive. It's a very important factor.
Okay, so even though I'm going out of state, I'm actually from Indiana. So I have family around, so it would be kind of like the same thing as some people who are staying in state. So it's not a huge leap for me to go away. I'll be about 45 minutes away from my grandparents. I also wanted to, when it came down to it, I wanted to run on the cross country team, and I got an opportunity because it's a smaller school and it's a D3 school, so that was an easy thing. And then the third thing I was looking for was just I want to be a teacher, so I wanted a lot of experience under my belt before I actually got into teaching my own classroom. And at Hanover, that's a huge part of the curriculum. You actually have to have a certain amount of hours and do a lot of different things that some of the bigger colleges aren't going to require as much. So I knew I wanted a smaller school because I wanted that attention. So the next question that we were asked is, how many schools should I apply to?
Okay, so for this, I don't know if there's really a right number. I know people who applied to 3 schools and people who applied to 17. So there's a big range. Personally, I read that like it's good to apply to about 6 to 8 schools and maybe 2 safeties, 2 reaches, and targets. But for everyone, it's different. I know people who applied to all reaches and hoping that they might get into one of them, which is like increasing their chances by applying so many. So
Yeah, I would just say there's not really like a flat rate or like a given number they should apply to really. But as long as you're applying to, a few reach schools, a few match schools, and a few safety schools, I think it should be fine. Maybe 2 or 3 each, so around 6 to 10. If you want to go more than that, that's obviously fine. So obviously kind of depends on the person. But I would just say don't like really apply to a school just to apply there. I would try to have some type of purpose with what schools you're applying to. Maybe you actually do want to go there because college applications can get expensive if you don't have a fee waiver. So that's something to consider as well.
I think, well, in my experience, definitely when I transfer, I'm going to be applying to more schools. I think that I kind of made my options like really small, and I didn't really apply to schools that, I don't know, like that I was really interested in. So I would say from my experience, don't do that. If you're not sure about where you're going to go, don't just, like Sam just said, don't apply to places that just because you want to apply. So that's what I say. So I think as many schools as you want to apply to. That's just my opinion. But
I think it's also a type of it's kind of like a game you have to play on how many schools to apply to for each category. So you kind of need to know where you are and how well you can get into certain colleges and kind of go off of that as well. And it's totally fine if midway through applications you decide to drop schools. I dropped 3 schools because I didn't like them as much. And that's something you forget you can do, is just to ignore some colleges. But yeah, I'm with the other ones. Apply to schools you really want to go to and ones you can see yourself at, and don't just go just because it's really great for your major. Is it going to be really great for you and the other things you want?
I would say to apply to as many as you can within reason, because each school takes a lot of time and a lot of money, but admissions is very random, and you can never truly be sure where you will and won't get into. So focus on the schools that you really care about the most, you know, put the most time and the most effort into like 3 or 4 schools that like you really want to get into, and then send those out. And then sort of sit down and look at how much time you're willing to devote to the rest of your applications and how much money you're willing to spend on them. And really just keep on applying, keep on applying, keep on applying, because you never really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And also your top school, unless you had like a dream school for years, your top school is definitely going to change as your priorities change. So it's really great to have a variety of options. So apply to as many schools as you can within reason.
Yeah, I was one of those people who applied to like 18 schools, and I would just like to say what a colossal waste of time and money that was. No one should apply to that many schools. That's insane. I'm going to a maximum of one, and it's the school that I always thought that I was going to end up at. There is something to be said for the randomness of college applications, but I would say have a safety, have 1 or 2 safeties, have 1 or 2 targets, and have 1 or 2 reaches. Your goal is to try to get the best education possible. But like, I don't know, I spent like at least 8 hours working on my essays for the University of Virginia, which was a safety in a school that I was never truly considering going to. Don't do that to yourself. Just like have there is something to be said for having a concise list. Like your preferences will change and everything, but there's no reason to just I would disagree with a lot of other people are saying. There's no reason to just go and keep on filling out applications. Pick places that you actually think that you would end up going to.
Sorry, my thing wasn't unmuting. There's nothing really I can add to what everyone else has said. I think everyone else has done a really good job at, you know, explaining how to or how many colleges to apply to. So I'm going to pass it on to the next person.
I have to agree with Sarah. I applied to like 17 schools, and while admittedly, 5 of those were in the UK, which their application is only $25 for 5 schools. So like, it's a single application for 5, so it's not that bad. That still means I applied to 12 schools in the United States with 12 different applications, and that's crazy. Don't do that. I have like 7 schools. And then if something has like 1 application for a bunch of schools, you can do that. But like, don't worry. As long as you apply to, you know, your safeties, your sort of secure options, and then reach schools, you'll most likely get in somewhere. So don't worry about that. And narrower options will be better, because later on, first of all, you don't have to pay as much, and second of all, later on, if you do get into a bunch of them, you'll not have a struggle of trying to figure out which one you actually want to go to. And if you don't have that struggle and you still get into a bunch of them, then why did you apply to a bunch of them in the first place if you already knew which ones you really would have wanted to go to? So be concise.
Okay. So I just want to agree with Sarah. I feel like I applied to 16 schools, and after the whole application process, I'm really only considering like 5. So I didn't like write as many essays as Sarah, that's for sure. But I applied to way too many schools that I'm not even considering. So I think that just kind of repeating what Sarah said, apply to schools that you can see yourself at, because that's, I think, the main thing. Another thing, apply to schools that you want to go to, because a lot of like this college decision was just being influenced by like my parents and being influenced by like my friends. And I feel like the schools that they recommended that I applied to or like wanted me to apply to are schools that I just didn't want to go to. So apply to schools that you want to go to, no one else.
Yeah, I'd agree with a lot of the sentiments expressed earlier. I think Sarah said it very well. Applying to I applied to 16, 15 maybe. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. I wrote like 23, 25 essays. And it makes the decision process terrible because there are too many choices. So I guess before you start applying to places, try to cap yourself at something. thought I was going to apply to 10 at the most, but that didn't end up happening. Yeah, try to stick to something like that.
I applied to 9 schools, but a lot of the schools that I applied to had either like a free application, which is not a hard thing to get. You just have to ask questions a lot of the times, and just see what you can do and where you can apply. And a lot of applications are free for anyone, so just look into schools that have free applications. There's websites for that too. If you Google like colleges with free applications, like whole lists will show up. And then you can look at those and dive deeper, and or see if like a college interested is on that list. And you can always download the Common App and just start. Even now, if you're a junior, even if you're a sophomore, it'll just roll over and it won't like delete any of your information. But I also applied to schools. I laid them out and I looked at my scores. Like Sarah was saying, like numerically, you have to fall into a category. So there's going to be reach schools that you're going to be like, oh, well, my SAT score doesn't fall there. But then you also should have some safety schools where you're like, oh yeah, like my SAT score is like way above what they want. And then same with GPA. So I think it's really just a matter of like how much you're willing to spend. I knew I only wanted to pay for 5 applications, so I only paid for 5 applications. That's kind of how I did it. The next question is, does your social media presence play a role in your application? And I think this person was asking like what you post as well as if you follow other colleges.
Okay. I don't really have like social medias where I guess it is important to like be careful what you're posting. I don't think I've ever had an issue like posting things I shouldn't be. So I wouldn't know if there probably are repercussions obviously for that. But as far as like following college accounts and stuff, it's good to get information, but before the like actually getting accepted into schools, I didn't follow any college accounts or anything on social media. So I don't think it necessarily will play like that large of a role in like acceptances and stuff, but
Yeah, I mean, like I've heard rumors about people or about colleges judging applicants based on their social media profile, but I don't know. For me, I don't think it really impacted me. If you're also keeping a private account, I don't think that really allows them unless you're obviously accepting them. And yeah, either way, I think you should maintain a pretty good status on social media. Just in general, I recommend you probably shouldn't post anything your parents wouldn't want you to say or anything like that. So yeah, just keep a pretty good status on social media. And in terms of like using it to follow accounts, I think that's helpful because Instagram and things like that are pretty, at least for me, pretty beneficial for like getting news and things like that. But there are still a ton of other ways, like just going on the internet, looking at the college website. I think that's more beneficial than just following them.
In my experience, I definitely think social media does play a role in your application, because like in the beginning of the school year, I was interested in a few schools to see if I could get recruited for those schools for my sport, and I did get like requests from like the team accounts and stuff. So I mean, I accepted because I have nothing bad on my social media, but I think that it's important, like everyone else said, just to keep like a good like image and don't post anything you wouldn't want like colleges to see and like your parents. And I also agree that it's helpful to follow accounts. So yeah.
For me, I didn't really notice anything that, like, I didn't think of this as something to do. I didn't follow any college accounts. I still don't follow my college. But yeah, I agree with everyone else. Like, make sure what you're posting is something that, like, if it's brought up later, you can be proud of it. And if you do follow college accounts, they probably aren't going to be looking at like, oh, who's following me when looking at acceptances and stuff like that. But they're more, or it can help you like get excited for the college and get information that you need and just like get you ready for the school year.
So the UCs publish the things that they factor into their applications. It's like the 14 points. You can find it online. social media isn't on there, so I don't think that they look at it in general. Plus, they have like 88,000 applications at one school, so there's no way they can look at all of them. When it comes to private schools and other schools that are more holistic, I don't think they do in general, but if you write about your social media in your essay, or somehow they find out about it, I mean, admissions officers just kind of might look it up. But I think in general, no. And when it comes to following, I mean, it's helpful to like know more about the university, because then you have like you can demonstrate interest in other ways. And they sometimes give away free stuff on their Instagrams, but there's no big reason to do it.
I mean, I think everyone pretty much covered the whole social media thing, but in terms of following, a lot of schools will have a class of 2024 Facebook group, and I would really recommend when you're considering colleges to join them, because then you get to see what your classmates are like and just the vibe of the campus in general and your classmates, and those are really helpful, and that actually helped me decide what college to go to. And then also like watching certain YouTubers who go to that college also really helps, because then you also get a vibe of the campus that way.
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. I would just add in this that the only time I've heard of social media really mattering for if someone getting into a college or not is if they posted something like racist. So, don't be racist. It's like life advice. But that's all I can really think of to add.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really add anything either. Everyone else has done a good job. I would just reiterate to keep your account like PG-13, that kind of vibe, because it can sometimes give the wrong impression.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Annie said, with the whole Facebook page stuff. I've been able to like not only just see the other people that are, committing to these schools, but also kind of just having them reach out to me and having conversations with them, like through Instagram, like through direct messaging or stuff like that. I feel like that's super helpful, because not only are they like, telling me about the school, but they're also kind of making me feel more comfortable with, the fact that I might be making a decision to go there.
I just wanted to jump in really quickly, and just to add that the social media or following back may not necessarily affect admission for larger colleges that don't really have the capacity to really review. But I've heard from a lot of college representatives, if it's a really smaller college, maybe more of a private college, then I would recommend that you do follow on social media, because I have heard from reps that they do sometimes go back and really look to see if the student has requested information, follow them on social media. So it's just something to consider. It doesn't mean you have to add all the colleges that you're thinking about, but especially those that that could be smaller or private, I would definitely recommend that you follow them.
I think following the universities that you're interested in is a good way to kind of get a feel for for them. But I agree with Sam that the websites and doing research beyond their, the veneer that they publish on social media is a great idea. But I personally I don't think my social media account had anything to do with my as college's acceptances or lack thereof, but I think that yeah, I mean, I don't use my social media very much publicly. I haven't posted in about a year and a half. So yeah, I don't think it's that important.
Don't have much to say. UChicago and Rice have really well-run Instagram accounts, though, and I would recommend that you follow them.
I know I'm going to a small school, and we all kind of follow each other on like the Hanover page, and like it's pretty much like students who go there, and it's smaller than Culver, so it's just kind of like everyone follows it and knows it, kind of. And then obviously I follow the cross country page, which is just nice, and it helped me make a decision between two different teams. I would say that as long as you're not posting anything, like everyone said, that you wouldn't want someone to see, then you should be fine. I think following them is just really helpful, because as a lot of the juniors will already tell you, there's a lot of college emails. You didn't necessarily apply to that college, they're just reaching out anyway because of the PSAT. So it's kind of helpful to follow the ones that you want information from, and then when you do check your feed, you get the information you need and you don't miss anything, because a lot of the times they'll say, we're going to send out acceptances on April 1st, but it'll be before then, and we've sent them out already, and then it's nice because sometimes you miss that email or something and you can go check your portal. We have a few more questions, but if you guys have questions as we're talking, feel free to put them in the chat, and then we'll bring those up as well. So the next question is, how do I request more financial aid?
So for me, that was like one of the biggest factors in going to college in general. If I didn't get good financial aid, I wouldn't be going to university, which is why it's like waiting on financial aid to like make the decision to go to school. But I know a lot of schools, you do have to wait until after the date to commit to appeal financial aid if you don't get the financial aid that you would like prefer for specific schools. But also just like emailing the financial aid office. I know like right now it's weird because like Corona, a lot of offices are closed except for email, but sending an email is like, it may take a little bit for response, but it does make a difference. Like people are there to help you, and especially if there was mistakes in like your FAFSA and stuff like that, it will help to like email them and ask questions about like gift aid and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mary Long kind of covered like how to appeal and like the whole process that goes into that. But in terms of just financial aid from a regular standpoint, I would just recommend filing your FAFSA as soon as possible. I think that opens in early October, and you have till March to file it for priority aid consideration, and you can get tons of money from that. There's also a ton of scholarships out there. There's a Culver City Community Scholarship, which is local, pretty easy to do, and there's tons of them online that kind of like relate to you as a student. There's tons of specific ones. And also, I'm not really too familiar with this one, but there's something called the CSS profile for private schools. That's another way to get aid. So yeah, I'd recommend doing that as well.
For me, obviously SMC is a lot more of a better financial choice. So for me, definitely I would say they have scholarships at SMC. I've done one already. They have some for incoming students and students that are already in the school, and also be a full-time student so you can get your tuition paid for and books and stuff. I'm pretty sure there's also financial aid for that. So there's a lot of financial aid opportunities at SMC along with all that. So
for financial aid, I don't have a ton to add for that part, but for scholarships, at least at my school, one of the biggest scholarships you can get is based on merit. So based on your grades and your test scores. So like, as much as we all like kind of not caring as much for certain things, we should probably keep doing that, simply not just to get into good colleges, but once you're there to get at the best scholarships you can based on your SAT scores, your ACT scores, your GPA, things like that.
I don't either have that much to add. That appeal process is important, and usually you can get some more money through that. Also, I've heard stories of people like going to one college and being like, oh, college X gave me this amount of money. Can you match that? In colleges, if they will do that. But, your mileage may vary with that, but people have had some positive experiences. Also, I'd say be really careful when filling out the FAFSA and the CSS profile, because those will directly like impact your money, especially if you have like a college savings account. Make sure you know whether you're putting that in your parents' assets or in your assets, because it'll change how much money you get significantly. Should I answer the other question also, or should I do that later?
Yeah, just go ahead and answer that one.
So Elijah asked about programming languages if you're a computer science major, like what you should know to start. For admissions, you don't need to know any programming languages. They don't ask that on your application. Curriculums are designed to start from scratch. That being said, taking AP Computer Science is always a good starting point. You learn Java and that. if you're not doing AP Computer Science, a good sort of starting language is Python, because it's a relatively basic language, but it gives you a lot of the, like in terms of syntax, just like sort of the words you use, but it gives you a lot of the big ideas of programming. It sort of introduces object-oriented programming, it introduces the ideas of variables and so on and so forth. USC uses C++, I know other schools use Java, so if you want the summer before to look at what your introductory classes use and to learn that, but that you wouldn't do until after you've gotten in. So I recommend, if you just want to start from scratch, Python. Oh, or if you have a Mac, you can learn Scratch, the program iPhone has. Not Scratch. I'm forgetting what it's called. It'll come to me eventually.
So just sort of expanding on the whole Culver City scholarship thing, that's super important to fill out. You're going to get notified about it midway through senior year. And basically most people who apply for these scholarships are going to get it. And it's only for people going to Culver City High School. And I made the mistake of not filling it out and I really regret it. So just really make sure you do that. It'll help a lot.
Yeah, I hate the financial aid process so much. It sucks. It's so much paperwork. It's so much going through all of the stuff and finding very specific pieces of information in the mountain of, files that my parents have kept from past years of taxes. It's not a fun process, but it's so important that you do it immediately because the money does run out on a federal level and within the different schools that you're looking at, because they only have a specific amount of aid and a lot of times they'll already have allocated it. I haven't personally filed a case for getting more financial aid from an institution that I was already given, but I know that's also something that you can do. And also something that I've heard people do, I haven't done this, but I've heard that this is something you can do, is if you're choosing between two similarly calibered institutions and you're getting more scholarship money or you're getting more aid money from one, but you want to go to the other more, you can call up the latter and say, hey, this other school is giving me more money, what can you do for me? And that is something that is possible as well. And just, I don't know if there will be another question about this, but I do want to talk about the scholarship process for a moment, because right now all I'm doing is applying for scholarships. Looking for scholarships and finding ones that apply to you and that you can, that actually you are qualified for and that you can write an essay for is very difficult and hard to do. But overall, the time that you're going to spend doing that is going to be worth it. If you think about how long it would take you to work at a job and make $1,000 versus how long it would take you to apply to $5,000 scholarships with the potential of getting one, the applying for scholarships is just clearly the better option that you want to choose. And that's something that you want to be doing. I've been using a lot of different websites to try to find scholarships. There are a lot of scholarships that are specific to schools that you can do, but for applying for those, start looking now, because there are a lot of ones that I'm mad at myself that I didn't find earlier because the application was due in July or in January or something, but I feel like I was a perfect match and I really could have gotten it. So yeah, think about this. Student debt is scary and nearly inevitable for a lot of people. So make sure that you are applying for scholarships because you're going to thank yourself later.
Yeah, so for SMC, part of the application process is applying for financial aid. So you have to do that no matter what. And I can't remember the exact name. Ms. Valverde can help me out of the act where the first year of community college is free, and then the second year, I think they just made the second year free as well. And so by applying for financial aid, you're getting basically the free tuition, as Juliana said. Applying for scholarships, if you decide to go there, you meet with the counselor who goes to SMC or works at SMC, and they encourage you to do the scholarships because they want to help you out as much as possible. So just, keep your options open and don't turn down free money, basically.
Okay,
Just to add, can I add to that just quickly? You do have to maintain full-time enrollment for the free college tuition. Doesn't mean summer or winter sessions, but in the fall and the spring, in order to get the California Promise, you have to be full-time, which is a minimum of 4 classes per semester or 12 units per semester. And it has been expanded to 2 years. Before the closures, there was talks of the Cal States giving the last 2 years of college for free. So hopefully that's something that the Cal State or the state of California will consider, continue to consider moving forward. But that right now, the discussion is only with the Cal States and only for students that are obtaining a transfer AA degree, which is called an ADT. And that varies by college and also by program. So not every single program looks like they are considering having that additional 2 years at the Cal State for free. But there are a lot of ADTs in different areas: psychology, communication, history majors. So, and the list goes on and on. So if that's something you are interested in, I would also like you guys to know that there's a possibility somewhere down the line is 2 years of Cal State tuition for free as well.
Okay. So I think that I wish someone would have told me how unaffordable it was to go to college out of state. Because for me, I feel like the most difficult part of this entire application process isn't, wasn't like, from schools and applying to them, but it was getting the financial aid from them. So at the moment, I am currently in the process of appealing. I appealed one school, and I'm waiting on a waitlist decision from another. And I would say that as much as scholarships can help, I totally think applying for them is worth it. Sometimes scholarships cannot they just can't cover everything. So I'd say that if you're considering going out of state, definitely keep in mind the fact that it's going to be a lot more expensive than going in state. And I would say, speaking to the appeal process, I mean, I submitted my appeal on Monday, and I'm waiting to hear back from the financial aid office. But all of this financial aid stuff is making junior college really tempting. So yeah.
I have to agree with Zoe in that everything about finances is crazy. But definitely start applying to scholarships early, like Sarah said. I regret not doing that. If you're looking at, I'm looking at colleges outside of the United States, which limits the number of scholarships you can have and limits the financial aid they'll give. But if you're applying in the States, you should definitely request more financial aid. And I think that I haven't done it yet, and I'm intending to do it this week. So definitely do that. Yeah, I don't know.
Can I respond to a question in the chat? Is that okay? Sorry. Yeah, okay. So someone said, where do you recommend to start looking for different scholarship opportunities? I personally liked the College Board tool that they have. I liked these basically because they know all of your information and you can input all of the deciding factors, because there are a lot of scholarships that go specifically to people who have a parent who's in the military or people who are of a specific ethnic group. So basically you're able to fill out all of that information about yourself before they start showing you scholarships, which is really important because there are so many out there that are to a very specific group that you may not be a part of. So that really helps to narrow it down. And then beyond that, I've found that also things that have been the most helpful are scholarship tools that are specific to each institution. I think that UC Berkeley has a pretty good tool to find scholarships that might apply to you that are specific to its students as well. And then another thing that I want to note really quick is that the largest scholarships you can receive are going to be highly specific. Like I've applied for like $10,000 per year in college scholarships, and that was specifically to STEM majors who are of an underrepresented group in STEM fields who are going to UC Berkeley. And so and going specifically to the College of Letters and Science at UC Berkeley. So it's like, you're going to end up spending a lot of time looking at scholarships that are like $1,500, which may not seem like a lot, but that stuff adds up and any little thing helps. So yeah, I liked the College Board tools. You can also just Google, scholarship finders and things will come up as well. But I don't know. I don't like some of the larger websites as much because a lot of them you have to sign up to use and they seem kind of scammy and stuff. That's my suggestion.
Okay, started applying to scholarships in like October, November. It's been really great. The actual getting them rate for scholarships is pretty low, but if you apply to enough, at one or two, I got 2 so far. And regarding financial aid appeals, for UChicago and Rice, I got nothing originally. And so I sent an appeal saying how my family's financial situation might have changed. The turnaround is pretty quick. I got responses within a week, and they both told me they didn't give me anything else, but then Chicago said they'd give me more merit aid, and I don't know whether that was related. Might have helped. I don't know. Just, it doesn't take too long, so just submit an appeal if you think you have some sort of case.
I'd like to mention something about the Culver City Community Scholarship real quick. If you are thinking of deferring, that scholarship will not carry over. So that's something to note about that if you are considering deferment before college.
So just overarching, there's a lot of opportunities for you in terms of even at the very beginning or even the summer before your senior year. The first that I always love to highlight is Posse. And I know that I have a friend who's going to Posse. I have a friend right now who is 2 years older than me, and she is actually at Northwestern, and she's a full Posse scholar. There's kids in our grade that I know that are going. It's a wonderful opportunity. I went through the application process. I'm not a Posse scholar, but it's still a good process to go through, and it still opens your options. And you still get to say, hey, I made it this far in Posse, which looks really good on your application because it's a merit-based scholarship. And so that automatically tells colleges, like, oh, like someone looks at you like for your merit-based scholarships, looks at you for your leadership. It's just really wonderful. The second thing I'd like to say is that scholarships, I'm just gonna like kind of piggyback on what Sarah was saying, is that you should start as early as possible because you will realize that a lot of them are due in January, although that doesn't seem like it totally makes sense sometimes when you're going through the process, but just start earlier rather than later. And then personally, I did appeal for financial aid. At the end, I was going through 2 different options, and I appealed to both of them. Then I appealed again, and then I appealed the 3rd time. So there's a lot of different options you can do. I was one of the students who like sent my financial aid packet that was better to the school that I actually wanted to go to, which is Hanover, which is school I'm going to now. And I went back and forth with them and said, like, this is kind of what this other school is going to give me. And they are almost matched it within less than $1,000 a year. So that's always a good option too, and you definitely should. And like I said before, like always ask questions because a lot of the times you can get more than you thought, and you can do a lot more than people tell you you can. So you just always ask questions, even if it's just to your admissions counselor. We have 2 more questions. So for the panelists, like try to keep it a little bit short for the next 2, just because we only have 10 minutes left. But the first one is about, yes.
Savannah, can I just add, I'm working on Posse right now, so if you guys are interested in Posse, just so that you're aware, teachers and faculty nominate students for Posse, so if that is something that you want to research and potentially be considered for that pool, you do need a teacher or a counselor to nominate you to be eligible to apply. It is competitive. We only put forth about 15 students from Culver. This year, as Savannah mentioned, we had 3 Posse finalists, okay? So it is competitive. If it's something you're interested in, make sure that you reach out to a teacher or your counselor to be nominated, okay?
And then also for Posse, it's a full tuition scholarship. Just in case you were wondering, because I know I kind of threw that out there without a little context. So for the next 2 questions, I'm just going to throw them out kind of as once, and then if you guys could just answer them to wrap us up. The first is should I be taking harder classes and potentially get a lower GPA, or easier classes for a higher GPA? And then there was a question about the SAT. So if you guys could wrap that into one. And then the last question is, what's the biggest tip you could offer me in completing my applications?
So as far as like a tip, I would say like start earlier. I kind of put it off till later, and it's a lot more stressful if you're trying to write an essay that will get you into college in a short amount of time. But as far as like taking harder classes or APs, the one thing I asked myself before I took an AP class was if I think I could get an A or an A or a B in it. If I thought that I wasn't going to be capable of doing that, I personally thought that it would look better if I got an A in a normal class than a C in an AP. If I thought I was able to get an A or B, obviously I took the APs because it will boost your GPA or your weighted GPA if you do get an A in it. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think AP classes are great if you're ready for them. However, yeah, I think getting a C grade in an AP class or below is definitely worse than getting an A grade in a regular/honors class. And I think you also should consider what class you're taking specifically. Like, does that relate to your desired major? I think those are the classes you should be focusing on. Also, because they give you college credit, so you wouldn't have to take as many classes in college. That's a big time saver. And as far as the other question about like some other tips about the college app process, I would just say to start really early. I think the Common App opens in August. I'm pretty sure the UC app is open then as well. So that's during the summertime when you probably have a lot more free time than you'll have during school. So I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to get started then.
Oh my God.
Also, scholarships, applying is really good thing as well. So,
Yeah, I would agree with that advice. Also, just on the whole like writing essays process. On the whole writing essays process, I wrote probably like 5 or 6 versions of my personal statement before actually deciding one. Like if you start early and just keep on like banging out ideas, things will make sense a lot more, because like writing a personal statement is a very vague thing and it's very hard to do and figure out what you actually want to say about yourself, but doing it multiple times and figuring out what aspect of yourself you really want to showcase, that's something that comes with time. And also, like as for doing classes, I maybe like would disagree with the advice about thinking about it in terms of what you think your major is going to be, just because I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on you because you might not know what you want to do. I certainly didn't, you know. So just take AP classes that you think you would enjoy, or that you think you and I don't know. I would definitely go into AP classes with a bit more of an optimistic attitude about it. I personally think that like if you go into take AP classes and you go, this is going to be hard, but I'm going to put in the work and I'm going to do my best, that gives you a lot. I think that is a much better mindset to go into it than like, I think I'm going to get a B, or I think I'm going to do exactly this well. So, you know, like know yourself and everything and don't stress yourself out too much. But I would try to think about things in terms of that mindset more so than more so than like with exact expectations. That's all.
Yeah, so on AP tests, I mean, just because you take an AP class doesn't mean you have to take the exam as well. I know a lot of people who opt not to take the exam. The exam just gives you, I know someone else already said this, but gives you extra like credit in college or lets you opt out of certain classes. But I had a point, sorry, give me a sec. Oh yes, but the one thing that AP classes has taught me is it kind of helps you get an idea of what college classes are going to be like, because in college we're going to have to do everything on our own. Like teachers aren't going to spoon feed you handouts and study materials. You're going to have to come up with that on your own mostly. So in AP classes you really learn time management, how to stay on top of stuff, especially if you take AP Euro, which I know most of you guys have already taken, actually because all you guys are juniors. AP Euro has helped a lot. I mean, also senior year, you don't have to necessarily take a bunch of AP classes if you don't want to. I have. I've taken 3 this year, but I mean, that's like I don't know. It's really up to you guys about what you want to do for high school.
My best tip for
Go for it. Go for it.
okay, sorry Zoe. My best tip for college is be mindful of other people's time, because if you're filling out scholarships and stuff like that, you're going to need recommendations, you're going to need other people to write things about you, and you don't want to be obnoxious and be like, hey, this is due tomorrow, can you write how amazing I am? It's not really nice. So be mindful of other people's time and give them enough time to do something if you're asking a favor like that.
I'd have to say for. Oh, sorry.
I'm so sorry, by the way. I totally went out of order. I apologize. I just heard
I
Sarah.
don't
I
know.
thought it was my turn. I'm so sorry.
Okay. For all you AP Lang kids, take that assignment after the test seriously, where she'll give you essentially a month to work on your Common App. And most people are like, oh, I'm done with the AP Lang test. I don't have to worry about it. It's graded for completion. But let me tell you, if you have your Common App done going into the college application process, you'll be so happy and feel so much more relaxed. So really take that seriously. And then when it comes to harder classes or lower GPA, a lot of the AP classes you take usually have like a precursor class that's non-AP. So for example, if you're taking AP Chemistry, you take Chemistry before that, Chem 1 before that. If you're taking AP Euro, you usually take Global Honors before that. And so you can sort of get a sense of which classes and which subjects you'll be doing well in. But like if you get a B or a C in Chem 1, probably don't take AP Chemistry, because then that'll just sort of be detrimental to your GPA, and you still won't have the knowledge, and the AP test won't help that much. But if you got an A+ in Bio 1, then take AP Bio. So just sort of it depends on who you are.
Okay, can I go super fast?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
So I feel like no one has really talked about the SAT here, and I mean I feel like you guys all probably got like exceptional scores, but from my perspective, I was never super happy with my SAT score. I feel like I thought it was gonna bring my application down more than it was going to bring it up. So there's so many schools that are SAT optional, and most of those schools are the ones that I applied to and got into. There's options for people. There's colleges are so open, and there's a college for you. In terms of classes, I was more interested in taking AP classes that I was interested in, rather than if I thought I was going to get an A or not. So like my favorite AP class was environmental science, and I didn't know that I wanted to major in environmental studies before that class. So I think taking classes that actually interest you, rather than putting the grade before, is definitely important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think you should take AP classes you're genuinely interested in, but at the same time, a lot of colleges will judge your application based on the rigor of your classes. So it is very important to take AP and honors classes when you can. And I think the biggest piece of advice is, like whatever everyone's saying, start the college application process early. Because if you start early, there's this thing called rolling admissions, which means the colleges will accept you when you turn in the application, in early action, which means you'll find out about the college in November versus March. So just to have options early on is really helpful. And someone asked in the chat about classes during senior year. That's really important. I actually got off a wait list because of my grades in senior year, because I think that was my best semester in high school. So it was really important to take your senior years seriously.
Sorry, I jumped the gun earlier. I've already said my thing, so go on.
Can I chime in about the SAT? Right now, you guys, there is definitely a lot of colleges going test optional. And that is something that colleges are doing because of the cancellation of tests and whatnot. However, they haven't given all of the guidance in terms of colleges that have traditionally used SAT or ACT exams. So my recommendation would still be, if at all possible, to consider taking and enrolling to take the SAT in October or potentially September. College Board, I know right now, is working on offering exams online, depending on what happens with the fall and all of that and potential cancellations. But I would assume right now that if you can take the test, it is in your best interest to take it, because the SAT sometimes is used for other factors of an application, sometimes scholarships, sometimes placement in college level classes is determined by your exam. So I would take the time to continue to prep to take it, okay? That would be my advice. Because again, most colleges that are saying that they are going test optional for the next cycle are still saying that if a student has an SAT, they would still like to see it. Okay, it's still something that you can still submit on your applications.
I think as far as grades in general, it's always good to challenge yourself, because I know throughout my senior, or throughout just high school in general, I'm taking 9. I'll have taken 9 at the end of senior year AP exams. And so far I've passed them all, and so far I have credit for all of them at the college that I'm going to go to. So that would be equivalent to about a year that I'm taking off of college if they accept the ones from this year too. So it's definitely worth it to take the AP exams and take the AP classes and really challenge yourself. There's also something to be said about taking college level courses and trying to prepare yourself, because I know my sister told me when she went to college, like, definitely don't slack off your senior year because college is tough. And so I think that you should definitely keep challenging yourself. And then my biggest tip is that a lot of people don't tell you this, but private schools have a lot of money, and you should apply to private schools, because they have, like, people give them a lot of money, which means that they give you a lot of scholarships. So for example, I applied to a school that was $75,000 a year, and they gave me a scholarship so that if I was going there, I'd only be paying $14,000. And a lot of that is merit, and a lot of that is like just grades and things like that they gave me, but a lot of it's also I applied and I talked to them. And so even though it has a big price tag, that it could be less. So for me, I got scholarships to the UCs and the Cal States as well, but that was still going to be twice as much as the option that I chose. So don't be scared by the price tag. Apply there anyway if you want to go there. And then always, like I said before, ask questions, because you could get a lot more money than you thought. I went back 3 times asking for money, and they said yes every single time until the last one, and then I just decided between the two. So that would be my biggest thing, is just always ask questions, and you'll make the right decision at the end of the day. So don't worry about it. That is all the time we have and all the questions. So if Ms. Madrid or Ms. Valverde, you guys have anything to add before we close it off?
No, I thank you so much for participating. We are going to post this to, thinking about trying to start a YouTube channel, but if not, it'll be on the website soon. We're doing these presentations on Wednesdays. So just wanted to do a plug for next Wednesday. The mayor of Culver City will be speaking to students from 11 to 12 next Wednesday on Zoom, and we'll be promoting that shortly. You can always email me for the link. And then following that, I've got a lot of medical professionals, CEOs, financial advisors who are willing to do Zoom presentations on Wednesdays and more. So stay tuned for that. And if you don't already, please follow us on Instagram on CCC_CCHS. We've been posting pictures of our seniors. So for those seniors, we need more boys. Cooper and Sam and Isaac.
I don't know yet, I would.
We need pictures, so we want to post. We want to, and also make sure you send us your information where you're going to go to, because we want to get it out to for you to be recognized. The school wants to recognize you as well. So please send us your pictures and your kind of bios of what you've been involved with. And if you have any other questions, we're available for phone calls. Thelma and Ms. Valverde and I are available for phone calls, emails, Google Hangouts, whatever it is to get that information to you if you have any questions. So thank you for coming. Ms. Valverde, do you want to say anything? All good? All right, thank you so much. Bye.